This was around 80 years ago, 81 years ago. But I still remember because it was drilled into my head. This is what happened. I came from a very religious family. My father used to take us to his mother's house, my grandmother, Friday night to celebrate Shabbos. At that time, it was Shabbos. Now it's Shabbat. They changed it. When I got there, I was only 5 or 6 years old. I'm sitting there and I'm getting hungry. And the whole family was around the table. My grandmother says, I said to my mother who was sitting next to me, "Ma, when are we gonna eat?" My grandmother was in the kitchen with this great big stove, cooking, getting it ready, and she heard me. And she says in Yiddish, "We don't eat until the poor people eat." I was only 5 years old. You know, kids are selfish.
Indeed.
And I'm saying, what? And it was in the winter. The snow was coming down, and my grandmother had this big pot of
Yeah, I'm just recording.
soup, vegetables, meat, everything. And my grandfather, she gave it to my grandfather, and he left. He went out into the street to feed the people. And I'm sitting there hungry. Anyway, about an hour later, he come back in, the snow was all over him. He came in with an empty pot. And she said, "Now we can eat. But you always have to give to the poor people before you take anything for yourself." I was only 5 or 6 years old, but that stuck in my head throughout my whole life.
Because you were hungry.
Let's move on. Let's move on to when I was bar mitzvah. It was not like you kids get. I went to Hebrew school. We moved in quite a few places during the Depression. It was very difficult. A lot of times we had to move, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism there. When my mother was looking at apartments for us to move in, in those years, if you paid $15 or $20 a month for an apartment, that was quite a bit. My father was only making like $10 a week. One guy, I remember this, said, "You can move in here, there's no Jewish people allowed here." He didn't know we were Jewish. Well, my mother, it was my mother, myself, and my sister. She blew up. I don't even want to say what she told them. Anyway, the next step was my bar mitzvah. And like I said, it's not what you guys get. We had the bar mitzvah. I went to Hebrew school many years, learned the whole thing. And I went to a shul that was Orthodox. After the bar mitzvah, we went into a room. This was the celebration. There was a bottle of schnapps. My grandfather loved that. case you don't know what schnapps is, whiskey. There was a bottle of wine, there was a challah, and a sponge cake. That was it. That was the whole celebration. I got one gift, a fountain pen. That was my bar mitzvah. Then, right after that, here's something you should know. I was walking to school one day, and I see in the drugstore was a little sign, "Boy Wanted." I thought about that. I went to school. On the way back, I see the same sign. So I went into the drugstore, and I said, "I'd like to apply for that job." He says, "All right, go over to that table and write your name down." Well, I went over to the table, there was a big notepad, and I see all these names, turn the page, all these names, and they want me to write my name down. I said to myself, that's not gonna work. How are you gonna select, then I went back, and I didn't even put my name down. How are you gonna select the person you want for that job? I was 13 now. He says, we'll come to that later. I says, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll work for you for 1 week, free. If you like me, you gotta hire me. You never asked how much they paid. You never asked vacations or anything, any benefits. Just give me a job. That was that was in the late 30s, still during the Depression.
Did you get a job?
He says, okay. He hired me. I went to work. It was bad work, terrible work. All of it was down in the cellar. And I remember sorting out all the inventory, boxes and boxes. And after school, from about 3 to 6, he'd come down and check it out every day. What I got at the end of the day was a milkshake. So I went the next day and the next day and the next day, the whole week, and he hired me. I'm ashamed almost to tell you what he paid me. I was making 50 cents a week. But I was happy with it. Kept it up for a while. 13, let's skip to when I got 17. The war.
Before you go to that, did you continue your Hebrew education after your bar mitzvah? Or Jewish education?
Yeah, not in Hebrew school. My father, at that time, once I got bar mitzvah, every morning with my father, we laid the fillet. I went to school with Cteen. Okay? This is the way I was brought up. Until I reached 17. The war broke out. All my friends were drafted. I was alone, so I said, "Oh, join." So I joined the service the day after my 17th birthday. Yeah, my father didn't want to sign. My mother went berserk. She wouldn't let me join anything related to war. My father, I coerced him. I said, "Dad, you either sign this or I'll sign your name and forge it." Well, he signed it. So I went in at the age of 17, yeah. You were drafted when you were 18, but I didn't want to wait.
Wow. Excellent. We're gonna move on to, let's go on to labor. We'll come back to you in a moment.